Ja, ja.
If it's okay to record. It's recording.
Yeah, yeah, it's recording. I press OK. Um, yeah, it's it's really sort of really feels like a very concrete and very basic, simple need to exchange before or beyond whatever you like, any kind of discursive, philosophical, theoretical uh, um, dimension that would be required to fulfill or whatever, but really to exchange what's going on, sort of touching ground, I would say. This
Perhaps
this
we
is a bit
start with,
what we are interested in touching ground with each other and to see, do we feel still on a stable ground or not at all, or what is ground at all in our sort of situation, what do we share? Yeah, sorry, ma'am.
yeah, but perhaps we still start the introduction with a video and a short text about, uh,
Yeah, let's do it.
perhaps we do it only as an introduction, and then I would like as well to make a very short introduction from each person sitting here in the Zoom meeting. This I think would be nice. So I share the screen again. Um, I only need a second. Um, like this. And then I hope that Emine is not calling. She tried and my computer showed this. So you have your text, Fabian, right?
Mm,
We do it in German, English, okay?
mhm.
Es ist Herbst.
It's autumn.
Wir stehen am Fuße der Akropolis,
We are standing at the foot of the Acropolis,
unterhalb des Dionysos-Theaters,
below the Dionysus Theater,
am südlichen Hang.
on the southern slope,
Versuchen uns ein Bild zu machen,
trying to picture the situation,
es uns vorzustellen,
to imagine it
indem wir uns umschauen.
by looking around.
Hier, wo alles losgegangen sein soll,
Here, where everything is said to have started,
wo alle losgegangen sein sollen,
where everyone is supposed to have gone off,
buchstäblich.
literally,
Denn der Ausgang des Theaters, sein Anfang, ist ein Losgehen.
because the opening of the theater, its beginning, is a departure.
Das Theater als Fest,
The theater as a celebration,
als Prozession unter freiem Himmel,
as a procession under the open sky,
9 Tage und 9 Nächte lang.
for 9 days and 9 nights,
Ungezählte Menschen, die sich versammeln.
countless people gathering together,
Ein geheimes Treffen
a secret meeting of initiated,
von Einzuweihenden,
for those to be initiated,
Frauen, Kinder, Alte,
women, children, old people,
die sich gemeinsam auf den Weg machen von hier aus der Stadt heraus.
who set off together from here, out of the city,
Station für Station, 21 Kilometer, ein halber Marathon.
stop by stop, 21 kilometers, half a marathon,
Richtung Nordwesten, Richtung Meer.
northwestern direction towards the sea,
Entlang der Panathenäenstraße, über die Agora hinweg, den Marktplatz der Stadt.
along the Panathinaike Road, across the Agora, the city's market square,
Durchs Kerameikos hindurch, dem antiken Handwerksbezirk, vorbei am Pompeion, wo der Wagen der Athene für die Frühlingsfeste lagert.
Through the Kerameikos, the ancient craft district, past the Pompeion, where Athena's chariot is stored for the spring festivals.
Für die Dionysien, die dem Gott Dionysos gewidmet sind, den Männern vorbehalten.
For the Dionysia, which are dedicated to the god Dionysos, reserved for men.
Keine Frauen, keine Kinder, keine Sklaven sind dort zugelassen. Nur
No women,
tausende
no
junge
children,
Reiter.
no slaves are allowed there.
Nur tausende junge Reiter, Soldaten, freie Bürger, die zur Akropolis hinaufziehen.
Only thousands of young riders, soldiers, free citizens marching up to the Acropolis Hill.
Zu den Wettkämpfen der großen Tragödiendichter, ihr Theater als Wettstreit, Staatsakt, Kriegserzählung, ihr Fest als Machtdemonstration.
To follow the competitions of the great tragedy poets, their theater as a competition, a state's act, a war story, their feast as a demonstration of power.
Ihr Ziel, das Zentrum der Stadt mit ihren eigenen Geschichten zu besetzen.
Their aim, to occupy the city center with their own narratives.
Diese Prozession hier ist anders, in anderer Richtung unterwegs, in die Gegenrichtung zu einer anderen Zeit.
This procession here is different, traveling in a different direction, in the opposite direction, at another time.
Herbstzeit mit anderem Personal, die Frauen in der Überzahl, Kinder und Alte an ihrer Seite.
Autumn time, with different personnel, women outnumber men, children and old people are at their side.
Zusammen auf Wegen aus der Stadt heraus, weg vom Zentrum.
Together on path out of the city, away from the center.
Die große Friedhofstraße entlang, durch die Totenstadt hindurch, vorbei an Tempeln, Statuen, Raststätten, Olivenbäumen, am Fluss entlang, der Waschung erlaubt.
Along the large cemetery road, through the city of the dead, past temples, statues, resting sites and olive trees, along the river which allows washings.
Sie kennen alle noch die Rituale, die wir lange vergessen haben. Sie rasten, waschen sich und ziehen weiter, mal singend, mal still zusammen.
They all still know the rituals that we have long forgotten. They rest, wash themselves, and move on, sometimes singing, sometimes silent, together.
Durch ein Gebiet, das heute aussieht wie die Wüste in Arizona,
Through an area that today looks like the desert in Arizona,
von apokalyptisch in der gleißenden Sonne rostenden Fabrikanlagen gesäumt.
lined by apocalyptic factories rusting in the glaring sun.
Wie eine verlassene Cyberstar-Stadt am Ende menschlicher Zivilisation, über der die Gluthitze flimmert.
Like an abandoned cyber city at the end of human civilization,
An,
above which the blazing heat flickers.
an ihren Rändern in einer trügerischen Ferne lodern bereits die Brände. Schwarze Rauchwolken ziehen am Horizont auf.
At the edges, in a deceptive distance, the fires are already blazing, black clouds of smoke gather on the horizon.
Ab und an zieht ein Löschflugzeug seine Spur am ausgebrannten Himmel, betankt mit Salzwasser aus dem nahen Meeresufer.
Every now and then a firefighting airplane makes its mark in the burned-out sky, refueled with salt water from the nearby seashore.
Doch unbeeindruckt von den zukünftigen Verheerungen gehen sie weiter, dem heiligen Bezirk entgegen, der damals Eleusis heißt und heute Elefsina.
But unimpressed by the future devastation, they carry on, towards the holy district, which at this time was called Eleusis and today Elefsina.
Vor 2 Jahren zur Kulturhauptstadt Europas gekürt als Ort der antiken Mysterien des Lebens. Ein schlechter Witz und gutes Marketing, ob all der Armut hier.
Named as European Capital of Culture 2 years ago for being a place of the ancient mysteries of life. A bad joke and good marketing idea considering all the poverty here.
Ein böser Scherz der Gegenwart, der noch das Sterben von Landschaften wie dieser hier zu verkaufen weiß, der die antiken Ruinen anpreist, um die Ruinierung des Ortes selbst zu verdecken.
An evil joke of the present that even knows how to sell the dying of landscapes like this one, who praises the ancient ruins to cover up the ruination of the place itself.
Davon unbeirrt zieht der Tross der Frauen, Alten, Kinder indes weiter dem Tempel entgegen, jedem Tempel, der der Demeter gewidmet ist, Göttin des Lebens, der Ernte und der Jahreszeit, und ihre Tochter Chore, die von Hades geraubt zu Persephone wird, zur Herrscherin in der Unterwelt.
Undeterred, the procession of women, elderly and children continues towards the temple dedicated to Demeter, goddess of life, harvest and the seasons, and her daughter, Chore, who stolen by Hades becomes Persephone, the ruler of the underworld.
Zu welcher genau hier in den Felsenhöhlen von Eleusis der Eingang versteckt liegen soll, aus dem Persephone bei ihrer Rückkehr von den Toten erscheinen wird.
To which the entrance is said to be hidden right here, in the rock caves of Eleusis, from which Persephone will appear when she returns from the dead.
Und als nach 6 Tagen Marsch die geheime Versammlung Eleusis erreicht, da lassen sich alle zu Füßen der Felsen nieder.
And when the secret assembly reaches Eleusis after 6 days of marching, they all settle down at the foot of the rocks.
Schweigen zunächst unter dem nächtlichen Kosmos, der sich unendlich über ihren Köpfen erstreckt, schwören einander nichts über die Mysterien des Lebens und des Todes, den sie sich in den kommenden 3 Tagen und Nächten an diesem Ort verschreiben wollen, jemals jemand zu berichten. Zu niemandem ein Sterbenswort darüber, was sie hier erleben werden. Ein Schwur auf Leben und Tod.
Silence at first under the nocturnal cosmos that stretches endlessly above their heads. They swear not to tell anyone about the mysteries of life and death that they intend to devote themselves to in this place over the next 3 nights and days. Not a word to anyone about what they will experience here. An oath of life and death.
Zur Verzweiflung heutiger Historiker, die sich ein solch gut gewahrtes Geheimnis über 3000 Jahre hinweg nicht zu erklären vermögen. Rücken nahe zusammen, Kinder, alte Frauen, alle dicht an dicht.
To the despair of today's historians who are unable to explain such a well-kept secret over 3,000 years, they sit back on back, children, old people, women, all close together.
Und beginnen in Worten und Gesten, die uns nicht überliefert sind, um Mitternacht damit einander Witze zu erzählen. Witze über das weibliche Geschlecht, über den Ursprung der Welt, über die Entstehung menschlichen Lebens. Der Mensch ein Vulvawitz.
And at midnight, in words and gestures that have not been handed down to us, they begin to tell each other jokes. Jokes about the female sex, about the origin of the world, about the origin of human life. Man, a vulva joke.
Der die Schöpfung ehrt und heiligt, indem er sie verlacht. Und
Who
als das
honors
leise
and
Lachen, und als das leise Lachen, Kichern, Murmeln vieler Stimmen die nächtliche Stille von Eleusis erfüllt, wie ein zarter und zugleich wilder Gesang, der Persephone von den Toten heraufzurufen anhebt, da sind sie endlich eröffnet. Die Thesmophorien, die den Zugang zu einer anderen Geschichte eröffnen, die wir so lange schon vergessen haben.
Man, a vulva joke, who honors and sanctifies creation by mocking it. And when the soft laughter, giggling and murmuring of many voices fills the nocturnal silence of Eleusis, like a delicate yet wild song that calls Persephone back from the dead, they are finally opened. The Thesmophoria, opening up to that other story that we have forgotten for so long.
So perhaps after this, Anna is joining from the Polish side. So after this reading of a bit, we wanted to introduce, because the School of Care is one thing we started up when we came back from Athens after we did a research for 1.5 years. And this we wanted to share where it all started, the idea of the European Schools of Care. But at first, perhaps I would like to introduce you three, Elena, Laura, and Carla. And I start with you, Elena, because in thinking about if we read this text again, I was thinking about all the meetings we had in Athens. And I remember that during our research, it was so important to see you from time to time, and that you said, yeah, but please be careful with all these old stories, because we need the contemporary ones. They are so important at the moment. And we talked a lot about this sell-out sentence, live your myth in Greece, and about the problematic to talk too much about the old stones, because when we met, it was a time where you were occupying the theater in Athens, where you were fighting for the art scene, the performing art scene, and for the studies in Greece. And so you live in Athens, but as well you are working in other countries. And yeah, it was really important to have you on our side to discuss all the time how we can talk about these old stories, because we wanted to find something there where the stones are, but in the same moment to be super present in Athens and not to romanticize our time there and our work there. So yeah, welcome Elena tonight for working here with us. And
Mhm.
Carla, we met, oh wow, it's so long time ago. But I remember the first time we met, I had a scholarship, an opera scholarship. It was called Mozart Prisma. And I was super young. I started my studies, and Carla was there. Carla was studying dramaturgy in Frankfurt in these times. And I remember that I felt super privileged to have the scholarship. But all the workshops were super shitty. Really, it was like it was not a good time to spend there. And what Carla said was to make it open, to say it loud and to say, okay, we leave. We don't stay here. We don't have to stay a whole week if it doesn't worth it. And it was the first time where I had the feeling, okay, if I'm invited to something, I'm responsible also to create what I want to experience there. And I don't need to be silenced only because I'm a student. So, and this was the first meeting with Carla. And then we met the last, 15 years, or 1 to 2 years, and talked about theater. And so, welcome, Carla, to be here. And I think it was a point where I learned, okay, we have to think about education, about school, about how to behave when we share a space differently than in a hierarchy structure. Um, and then Laura, we met during our studies here in Bochum, in the region of the Ruhr. We both studied theater science. Um, and then all the time when we wanted to meet, someone of us was somewhere else, in Rome, in France, in Greece, in Italy. So what we share is that that we can't only live in one city. We have to live in different places, and so we have to spread ourselves and to all the time as well to leave one part of us in another city, in another language, to invent ourselves differently when we speak in another language and when we meet in other cities. Um, yeah, this perhaps in short. And yeah, you three know us, Fabian and me from Kind Collective. And yeah, inventing these schools of care together with our partners from Poland and Greece. So welcome to this working session. And yeah, I think that's a first little introduction from my side, and I'm happy to have you here.
So basically, what we connect with you, knowing you, which is a beautiful thing, is that we don't fly away too easily to the Athenian Greek sun and believe this is a beauty in itself because it can also burn. And it's very good to have a person like Elena that grounds you, and which is really very helpful. Um, and a person like Carla, and I think you all have a lot of things in common to step out of a given context if you feel that it doesn't make sense to stay in it just for the sake of being nice and polite and staying in it. And someone, as Mayam just said, where we had a discussion some time ago already about how it feels that you don't belong into like one place, but that our hearts and our minds and our life practices, which can also change from place to place, are located in different places in the world, which is probably also something that we all three share. So my first question to you would be, you can take it very literally or you can take it a bit more metaphorically. Where are you in the moment and what is sort of your present context of being where you are on any kind of level geographically or sort of in your emotional and thinking life situation, whatever you pick, to describe just a bit the ground that you are touching or missing in the moment of your personal context in this very sort of specific, concrete moment in time that we are meeting today. Whoever wants, you just let's organize ourselves in a very open way. Whoever has an impulse just jumps into the situation of speaking.
Yeah, my microphone is switched on, so I can start if you want. Although there are, I think, at least 100 different possibilities to pick up this thread or one of the many threads that you threw out during these first minutes, and I'm really touched by the way you opened this session and also by the invitation and by all the communications we had beforehand, because I think you have a really extraordinary way to deal with this kind of awkward situation of meeting online, but still you give so much personal energy and very situated connections and precise and concrete matter to refer to. And to me, it feels like a very generous gesture of friendship or trust that makes it really interesting also to arrive in this space and time that we can now share together. So thank you for all this, and also for the introduction through the video or the little online performance that you gave us. What I first thought is like, okay, it's great to start with like a Topian experiment, be in a place, walk around in a place, and it's not so much about a utopian approach, nor about a heterotopian approach, but it was like really, okay, that is the place where we can start from or start off. So, thank you also for this Topian insistence, all the while we are meeting in a online space. Yeah, exactly. So where am I is a complicated question that I could answer on various levels. I'm physically in Rome. I moved to Rome 2 years ago after spending 8 years in Sicily. And as Miriam correctly said, these places are like somehow the base, but I move a lot between three contexts, one could say, and these three contexts are southern Italy, the region of Ruhr and Rhine in Germany, Northern Westphalia, and the valley of the Loire in France. I work mostly as a literary translator today, so I also consider this kind of being Topian and being local in three different but very precise places part of my work, like between languages and context. And at the moment I'm in Rome, and I think this will be the new regular base for the upcoming years, although the other contexts will also continue. And then I could also answer on a more symbolical or metaphorical level. Before our meeting started, in the preparation talk, we quickly talked about the death of the Pope and the reactions we had here in Italy to this event. And I told you about the fact that the neo-fascist Italian government somehow prevented people from celebrating the anti-fascist holiday on the 25th of April because of the funeral of the Pope. And I think mentally this is somehow the place where I am at the moment, that I'm asking myself, okay, what can we do in this kind of devastating landscape in which the right-wing, extremely conservative and neo-fascist forces are getting stronger and stronger, and the leftist forces seem to die out. What can we do to like really develop or affirm a kind of different quality in our relationship to the world and to the present? Because I think that in the end, it's a difference of quality. The fascist approach to the world and to existence, and an anti-fascist approach to life. And this is maybe also a question that I really read in your invitation to talk about or think about contemporary schools of care. I think it's about equality in relation and in behaving and yeah. So first, very associative answer to your big question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I could go on. Thank you also from my side for the invitation. This is a tricky question for me. Okay, now I'm talking from Stockholm, Sweden, but I'm based in Athens. And as Miriam said in the introduction, I'm traveling. Somehow I'm trying to grasp the chances. So I don't know what's my context, because always I feel that I miss something. And in the question, maybe a relevant similar question, where do you feel like home? Mostly and professionally, personally, where in these like places where people alliances are more relevant to me. And I wish all these people could be at the same like location geopolitically, but this is impossible. So yeah, my context is a bit more merged, and I wish to stay like that, because otherwise I feel like I will stuck without moving, metaphorically and literally.
Hello and thank you. I want to mirror a bit. 23 months ago, we sat in Athens over a pizza that Silas was eating. It was a pizza with salami. And we talked about the literal gods descending from the temple to the theater and how to imagine that today. During Mozart Prisma, we saw Achim Freyer, Don Giovanni. It was the first assistant's job of Ida Müller. I found out years later. And I remember after this conversation you mentioned, Miriam, we listened to the Grand Partita for wind instruments of Mozart, which is still one of the most important pieces for me to remind me to breathe when I forget it. And these loops of time that I'm mentioning in the here a bit keep me very busy also in the now. I recently met a guy in Vienna in a bar. We went to my place, we fucked around a bit. He told me a story. I told him, stop the bullshit. What is the real story? He told me another story. I figured 2 days later, I know him since 2014 when I was working there for the first time. He had just arrived as a sex worker from Romania and was the main character in a documentary I wanted to produce with Wiener Festwochen, where I was working at this time. It is called Brothers of the Night and was then finished 2 years later. And I rewatched that documentary 2 days after I refigured it. And now we're in a very fascinating dance around people's characters and places in Vienna and the world that are showing up, that are disappearing, that are telling stories, that are acting, that are representing, because it's not only him who showed up, it's two more of the guys. And I think that night in Vienna, we were probably 7 at one moment, but I don't remember very well these things when transition or modernity is becoming liquid in my life. And to bring it back to where I am metaphorically, I'm drifting like I've not drifted in a long time in my life. Enjoy it, but also realize that I'm slowly getting older and need more and more moments like this to be reminded of the beauty of the banality. I did my taxes today. That's when I realized the 2023 thing in Athens for us. So I should probably start be a bit more precise with taxes and receipts and these kind of things. That's my conclusion for the moment. And I wanted to react quickly to Laura with the Pope. It's always in a city like Vienna, also where I'm based, and having grown up here in the countryside in Bavaria, where I am a lot. The Vatican is the second most powerful national entity speaking about economic resources in the world. One always tends to forget that because they don't come in this list of national states because they are private. But the amount of real estate they own and the specific bookkeeping they do to that they're allowed to do that is questioned every few years by a few national countries is something very maybe something we can learn from in a sense of what practices today can be or should be or are. I don't know.
Thank you. The beauty of banality. And being reminded to breathe. And then the Vatican as a role model for securing our financial base. I think this is a nice combination of perhaps we can elaborate a bit more on in your Carla, in your little very short tiny fragment of text for announcing this gathering here. You were also speaking about beauty. And I know you are a person who is reminding us all the time that beauty is actually the job of the arts to be done. And the rest comes along. Perhaps when you say beauty of banality or beauty as such, whatever that means, perhaps you can say a couple of more words about what beauty, and I assume breathing would be part of beauty, perhaps. What this can do, or how sort of how you perceive what's going on, also in terms of beauty, in terms of artistic endeavors and so on, in where we are in the moment, and how you feel about this.
I would like to ask a question to everybody. I've had a similar conversation recently with an artist and cultural manager from Switzerland, Eva Heller, whom I admire very much. And she's doing a series with people she knows that is called To Continue. And the first question she had was, if you would be a city, what would be your landmark?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Of course, if you would be a city, what would be your landmark?
I think it would be a river, the river that is flowing through the city.
I said a dirty, ugly, stinking river.
Why not? Yeah. I was really always very I have always been very fascinated by rivers flowing through cities, or by cities that have built around the river. So
I know that Elena will kill me, but I would be the Athenian sunlight.
Why not? Like,
I and it's really it can align so horribly with all the enlightenment metaphors, but there is like, and I would not go for any of the enlightenment philosophy whatever ideas, but for the pure, like how I, as a sensation, as a concrete physical sensation, how I uh, each time again and again I'm sort of really overwhelmed by something like a transparency and a concreteness of the light in Greece and in Athens and also on Peloponnese, uh, to 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 uh, to perceive the environment, the landscape, and so on such a concrete level, that it thrills me all the time, and that I feel sort of this is like this is not metaphorical, this is more planetary. I really feel like, okay, I'm I go we go through something that is much bigger than we are, and that is on the one hand old, and on the other hand it's very concretely there now, and it can be also dangerous. It is easy that everything burns and goes into flames, and that it fucks everything up, and that if we don't take care of each other, sort of it goes all to ruins. And the ruins, if the old stones and so on, are just the ruins, and they don't inspire any kind of contemporary life, then fuck them. We don't. It's not necessary. But this kind of, there is a specific feeling of freedom in this light that I have, that inspires something, some kind of inner resistance or resilience that I feel is connected to a concrete place and to a concrete landscape that has a history, but that could also have a future if we let it. And that is a strong feeling that I have as sort of a landmark in in a city.
I'm too slow today, I think. I'm really too slow. I try to imagine, and then if I go to a city, I still like to see how the church looks, but this I don't want to say and answer. But when I was in Poland now, I went to the church Eastern to see this community, and it's super strange and strong in the same moment. But if I go to cities, what I like as a character is as well the special food. So perhaps I would go for something what you digest, and perhaps I go for the food. And in Vienna, it would be the Kaiserschmarrn, of course.
And I agree, I think, with Miriam's option about food, because also for me it's really important. And also the streets during night hours, how lively a city is, or maybe it's not, it's like a desert.
And if a ferry would show up, but it's a neoliberal ferry and allows you for one wish, that is to have a new job tomorrow, what would it be?
A new job. Did you ask? A new job, right?
This is really a bit unfair in the situation at the moment because the situation is quite realistic, that there is the moment where we have to decide for something else if they cut the whole money at the moment for the free art scene. Um, and and I'm all the time really thinking about working as a teacher. I think it's really important to work with young people, but with what I studied, it's theater science and what is yeah, it's not literature, but it's compared literature, comparative literature. I even can't go to a school and to say I do German lessons or something else. It's not existing. But I think then I would prefer to work with young people, of course, and then I would start tomorrow to see where are young people and to start working with them, reading, telling stories, this kind of work I would do. I mean, I wouldn't get paid for it as well. I could imagine, but that would be the work I would do.
Yeah. The first thing I thought of was no, I was hesitating between a dancer and a nurse. Uh, Something that has to do more with bodies, definitely. But I also agree with Miriam on the school thing, because I think that school and education are fields that are mostly concerned by the neoliberal devastation of society. And talking about a different quality, I think we need brave teachers and brave pupils and brave students that believe in working on personality and subjectivity instead of conforming to standard operating procedures and this kind of stuff. So I would also be very thrilled by the task to work in a school as a teacher, but obviously I would also be in the situation to learn. I mean, I would try to learn from the young people that I would meet there. So yes, I think it makes a lot of sense to go to school.
Yeah, yes, for me, I'm not sure that I can answer this question since I'm anyhow changing positions. So I don't have one job, one profession. But take it somehow less seriously. I could be like travel blogger and traveling around the world for free without a lot of stress, but to be like a stable job, not to be like a short project again.
But you would write, right?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yes, or I can practice other mediums. I'm open
Okay.
for it. Yeah, but this is like in another sphere, yeah.
So Fabian, you have no answer. And it's something what we discussed for years. I thought when we went to Athens, I would come back and know what else I could do than theater. And I came back and I am still doing theater. But I think what is important for me is to open up the theater and to find spaces like this and to think about how to open up for other questions and to invite differently, I would say. And this is for me a very important question at the moment, where and I think this is as well why we choose the title of School of Care. That school, everybody knows what it means in the old times, like the institutions where you go, where you know that it's about education, about learning. But at the moment, I'm missing spaces where, I mean, if we talk about the beauty in the banal things, I think it's something what I would love to have a school for, without being romantic in it, without that it's that you have the feeling it's emptying itself, or it's but this would be for me super important to discuss as well, if we are back to this idea of the schools. And when we prepared this meeting, I asked you if you have something like best practice moments of where you had the feeling you experienced an utopian idea or an existing idea of a school of care in your life already. And there I would ask you to perhaps share where you experienced this utopian idea of another knowledge sharing or another seeing the beauty of the banal in the daily life. So yeah, if you would like, I would like to invite you to share one of these glimpses of the School of Care.
I find it fascinating how little we dream. My dream of a new job was to become a director of a bank for development in one of the rich countries and to really fuck it up whom to give the microcredits and stuff to. But I know I wouldn't be able to do it. But it connects to my example I was thinking about, which was around 13 years ago in Tokyo. I had heard about an architect that had refused to build any new buildings because he was aware that the population is shrinking and that space is limited in Japan, and that climate crisis and these things are going to happen, resource crisis of resources. So he was looking for utopian communities, how to shrink economy. And I got an email address from that guy. I wrote him a week later or something. He wrote me to come to a subway station. I went to that subway station, and there was one, there was two, there was three subway trains, and then I heard some whistling. And after some moments, I realized, okay, maybe that whistling has a meaning. So I followed the whistling to the riverbank, and there was a trailer with a piss-drunk guy around 50 singing, talking to me in Japanese, offering me beer, doing things like that, and all of a sudden giving me a guitar in my hand. I hadn't played the guitar for 10 years or something at that moment. So I started singing what I remembered from my youth until at one moment he said, hey, you passed the entrance exam of the 0 Yen Republic, the republic that is working without money here in Tokyo. You can now meet our president. I'm the foreign minister. The president was Kyohei Sakaguchi, an artist I love very much still. And he showed me the whole community, which was I don't know a good English word still for it, but an Aussteiger community. Lara, maybe you can help.
Not
Expats.
English is not my working language, unfortunately.
You know,
Expats community.
like expats within the city, because they had found this strip of land close to the river that didn't really belong to any of the municipalities around it. And it was all highbrow people, like the guy who invented the liquid crystal display for I don't know which LD systems or something, who lived in a self-built house with 43 cats and mainly made an income by inviting people who couldn't have pets at home in Tokyo because Tokyo is so small and the flats, and to come there to pet cats. One person that was only reliable to go to different places in the city to these 24/7 markets to collect the food that they would otherwise throw away. It was before that time when they would make it cheaper and resell it and do these kind of things. Another person who had worked on solar, on small solar system powered stuff to bring electricity for the whole community. And we're talking about like 30, 40 people who had moved there together. And it was for me one of the first real utopian performative communities I had met. And they were all agreeing on that one simple thing that they said, it's not us that are wrong, it's the system that is wrong. And as long as the system that is wrong, you cannot do the right thing in the wrong system. So that was for me maybe the first time I really had a mind flip on on seeing the other side or seeing the matrix or however we would call it. And the way they were dealing with each other, the way they were how would I say it, trusting each other in this precarious, insecure, imbalanced system or community inspires me until today. The Zero Yen Republic of Tokyo.
I was now I was thinking not to say it because I thought it's a bit stupid what came to my mind on this question before, but perhaps it connects somehow. I was thinking, what about telling the ferry to be Trump, but doing it sort of in the same way, doing the opposite, sort of like he does, caring a shit about any rules, any morals, whatever, and putting this ideology into place like he wants, to do it sort of the opposite way and see two things. If it would work out with a more or less leftist program as well, to do it like this, or if the gesture is already so fascist that you cannot sort of implement any kind of dreams that we might dream about, whatever they are, and see what that does, if it does actually the same thing, like what he's doing right now, sort of, because it comes from top down, it stays shit. And I would have a bunch of people, you would be among them, to tell me after the experiment if that would do any good in the future, or if that was shit and I should let my hands off it and go back to theater.
But very concretely here, I mean, Bocic in Chile is doing it, I would say, but with a very different. I mean, with a like a completely different content and political approach, but in the same clownesque fuck the system manner. Huh? How he started to not wear shirts to parliament, showing his tattoos. Everybody's listening to hard rock music now because he's listening to hard rock music. Everybody's talking openly about depressions and mental illnesses.
Yeah.
His parents welcome everybody at their house in Punta Arenas when you ring the bell. It's like, what is this club in this club in Florida called? That Trump is where he's always hosting everybody. But they have a small house in Punta Arenas in Patagonia, and you ring the bell and you get a barbecue.
Yeah, this is really interesting.
Maybe for me, as again, Miriam, you mentioned it before, a school of care or a place of care was while the occupation from the Danceville in Greece was taking place in Athens. It was more about unlearning and unlearning about our positions and expressing and sharing our needs. And for me, the important thing was that all or most of the generations were taking part. So was more a fertile sharing between people that in normal, in a sense, working conditions or working context will never meet. And it was like an utopian probably, or the story saw that was like utopian. But at least there was like a belief of trying out different modes of being together.
Elena, what was the occupation? What?
2 years ago.
Yeah, but which place?
In a central theater in Athens. It's called Olympia.
Okay.
And it belongs to the municipality. So it had also a different connotation why the people chose this place. Yeah. So it was really in the center of Athens. But it was that occupation was one among other occupations that happened like National Theatre School and in National Theatre. So they were taking place all together, and the one of the dance film was the last one that started, but also the last one that finished by the police that moment.
But it lasted 2 years. The
No,
occupation. No,
it
okay.
lasted some 40 or 50 days.
Ah.
Yeah, no, it happened 2 years ago.
Mhm. Yeah, among the examples I thought of were obviously also the occupied theaters in Italy that I did some research on between 2014 and 2020, let's say. There was a movement that the press addressed as the occupied theater movement in Italy, and it has to do with the struggle for urban commons in Italy. And yeah, throughout the decade between 2011 and 2020, so definitely in the aftermath of the economic financial crisis from 2008, different places and contexts popped up in which very heterogeneous groups of activists, artists, students, citizens occupied public buildings, especially theaters, but also other kinds of buildings, in order to reclaim them back as a place of social construction, self-organized cultural production, cultural and social production, and so on. I mean, you probably know these stories, so I won't go into detail. But this was, yeah, one of the first contexts I thought of when you were asking me for a concrete example that one could relate to the idea of a school of care. Curiously enough, and maybe this is more interesting to say today than to go into detail, I've been feeling for a couple of months, or yeah, that the focus has somehow shifted ever since. I think that the commons movement is intimately linked to the decade after the financial crisis, and to me it really lasts until Black Lives Matter and the pandemics. And it's a movement or a form and practice and subjectivity of critique that goes hand in hand with the occupation of the squares, with like the Tahrir Square or Gezi or these kind of movements. And it's linked to this decade that the very young historian from Belgium, Anton Jäger, called a hyperpolitical decade. I do not totally agree with his book, but I think something is useful to describe the last years. Yeah, well, and I think with the pandemic, all these critical movements in which the practice of care and also the practice of common learning or unlearning was linked to the idea of a place or of a square, has somehow experienced a cut, I think. So to me, this Topian aspect of care, like the School of Care as a place and as a building and as a commons in the city to defend or to occupy or to hold, has taken on some kind of historical aura or importance. And I think that after the pandemic, there's a shift towards the importance of relationships and the quality of social interaction. So I would say that talking about schools of care today, I observe a shift from a Topian focus to a relational focus. And so somehow I would consider my own examples as historical in a way.
Could you shed some light on how you follow or not follow this shift personally? How sort of because we said, and I know your book and sort of all these Topian based descriptions of concrete communities in spaces and places being in specific contexts where the contexts play a huge role of how they come about, how they find specific practices and so on. And the fear can always be that the specificity is lost somehow if it is not referred back to something that could be a place or that could be a specific context or whatever. And I would just be curious how in this shift that makes sense, sort of, that has also the risk of dissolving a lot of the concrete places and their impact on communal life and so on, into what is, because this relational, do we find this also in how we meet here now, and what is sort of the material context that is given? Is it the computer in front of us? This would be just questions that pop up where I would be curious if you could just share a bit of how you see that in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you know that I'm personally totally convinced of the importance of a local practice and also of a spatial materialization of all these relationships. No, what I meant is that I somehow observe a shift of paradigm because of the bodiless and spaceless experience of the pandemic. So I think that it was like a cut when people unwillingly unlearned local practices and being local. And I think also that these couple of years have destroyed quite a lot of contexts. I mean, I can quote concrete examples of urban commons in Italy, especially, that haven't survived the pandemic because their conscious and also affirmed vulnerability and precarity throughout this time became like fatal for them, and it was they couldn't protect themselves enough against the dismantlement of public space and public infrastructure that we have experienced with pandemic. So I think there's like some kind of they got weakened by the pandemic politics, and also by the dismantlement of the social tissue and structure. And the assault on public space and public infrastructure has only enhanced ever since. So the landscape is, so to say, more devastated than before. Also with the arrival of platform, digital, algorithmic, urban architecture. Sorry, Carla, you want to say something?
I wanted to add a question because one thing I'm realizing slowly coming out of this jet lag of this pandemic is that there was a big how would I say? I mean, there was a big friction between the Marxist and the how would I call it? The maybe more wholly left ideas that were that was happening before this pandemic happened, which was this extreme local that was working against an idea of an international, or that was always positioning also itself against an idea of the international, which maybe was a bit too much of a friction. The left always has to be in fractals. That's also what I believe. Huh? But recently, I'm seeing a lot, and I find this highly fascinating because what has also happened was a lot of communities that have refound themselves in a way during the pandemic. That was mainly around the party, the sex parties, the connection on that levels, spaces. How I'm realizing it, which were of course neoliberal during the pandemic. I mean, it was all about this secret parties that were organized somewhere. It was all about this. Let's go to the mountains for like a week, and we're gonna do the rave, and we're gonna the consumption of drugs has been rising since like 20% a year, especially amphetamines, ecstasy, MDMA, all these kind of things for experiences that you could have had at the beach or at the sunset, otherwise maybe. But very recently, I'm realizing, especially with, and I'm not sure if I'm right, especially with young women, that it has led to a huge freedom now that they are digesting these neoliberal experiences. And I'm not sure if it's just a wish that I want to see, but the way I see a very young generation in the beginning 20s reformulate their ideas about body desire and where they are placed. Once, like the one thing I see is the last German elections, where the strongest force is the left party. I mean, one election before it's the AfD, and now it's the left. And the other thing I really see is conversations on online dating platforms, in subways, in where I hear young women speak about their position in society with a physicalness I've never seen before in my life. I'm curious if you see similar developments, because I have a kind of and it's only since a few months. Like it feels like, okay, this 3 years is the jet lag, and now something is coming out of this that is maybe more positive than we might have thought with our sometimes also old-fashioned ideas, huh? Taking myself in with the festivals I did and the stuff.
Mm. It's very interesting what to say. What you say, I will try to observe things with this kind of glasses, because I think I know what you mean, and I can relate to that. I also observe like a shift in subjectivity and a shift in building relations, referring to oneself, referring to others, and so as if the pandemic and the pandemic jet lag had put an extra focus on this kind of relational quality. This is the impression I have also when I go to listen to events or talks, or when I talk to artist colleagues, and there's always a lot of need and interest in becoming aware or making one another aware of the affirmative energy that is circulating and that has been circulating in the last years. There's some kind of auto-reflexive need, I think, and also the need to put into common the awareness or the knowledge about the affirmative energies that circulate among us as bodies, as minds, as well, I don't know, floating subjectivities. And I think this focus is quite new compared to the spatial and local focus of the past decade. Because it's like more interior, it has to do something with the interior life and with subjectivity, and also with something that you can start working on sitting in front of a computer, because I mean, we were forced to sit in front of computers for a couple of years now. And also in theater, also when I go to theater, especially to like rather high-end, I don't know, classical stage theater, the good productions I see have to do with like a hyper realist, almost hyper psychological depiction of very molecular relational phenomena. And I'm both surprised and amazed by it, and also a bit clueless. And then this is also I mean, yeah, maybe one area in life where I notice this difference. So also, if you, Fabian, I know that you also like to talk about theater and arts in the terms of ecos and polis. And I think the commons stuff and being shaping places and self-organizing places and spaces has a lot to do with polis and with staying in the city and with building a community and an assembly in the city and reaching out to the urban environment and this kind of thing, no? And I think that this pandemic episode brought to the front a bit the ecos aspect, obviously, because everyone was banned into their iki. So
I was really
Can
wondering.
sorry,
Yeah.
can I just add a very concrete example, maybe? So the secretiveness during the parties now led to what I'm witnessing in Vienna in this summer for the first time. There's awareness teams that do the work for free in all the parks in between the clubs. So at the Danube River, in the parks where people are walking home or these kind of things, a safe space is created by people who believe in the power of a safe space. And that, in a sense, is a very new common that I'm like, I can also only share it in a sense of fascination, but wanted to give at least one concrete example where I see it, which is not as blurry and as blah blah as I was so.
No, but it was not so much blah blah. While listening, I was thinking, is this digitalization embodied in a way? I mean, in the whole time of the pandemics, being so much in social networks, so much occupied and social media is social media and not topian spots in the world or whatever. So it is sort of embodying perhaps all these experiences that had a huge highlight phase in this time of the pandemics, when so many things, the bodies were forced in specific regimes, but there are productive, like Michel Foucault, for beginners, sort of in every power relation there is a very productive side. And if these social media habits, like really a habitat, is offering to have a lot of time to think about subjectivity, subjectivation, the question of what is a safe space for me, how do I reinvent myself in order to bring myself into communication at all. If the bodies go out like this, having in mind that wars, climate crisis, and all the shit that is going on is destroying the planetary anyway, it might be that the bodies are carrying around this experience also in a productive sense, not only in depression, but also in this sort of, now we go out and in the parks of Vienna, sort of we do what we had to do when we were meeting online, and make ourselves become those sort of avatars, characters, and so on a very concrete level, and not so much as as a theater performative blah blah blah, but really something that is more internal, because it had enough time to grow internal and to and now these bodies are different bodies that meet. It's just, I don't know, but it's an interesting idea. And then to ask back, what is the Topian aspect anyway? Because still there is sort of a material like planet Earth as the one option, and we know the longer we study what Elon Musk is trying to do, the more we know there is only this one fucking option. And perhaps, Mayam, you could say some words about what you were doing this morning, because we've been working on a new European Union blah 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 application, which is called Oikosmos.
Yeah, well, it was more like to cut out the polis, I
And
would
it's
say, to
asking about
shift
the
around the
connection,
polis.
between the ecos and the cosmos, and take the polis out, for feeling that the polis, with all the beautiful things that it might have, has gone a very wrong way, and that there might be an interesting connection, reconnecting between house
And
and
cosmos, yeah.
and the planet somehow, whatever that means, like smaller scale and larger scale, and cut out sort of this
Yeah, I mean, it was the idea to have the cosmos and the other knowledge in a way, what is not grounded in the polis, and the oikos, where we invented kind of the European House Union with the ministry of the living room and the bedroom and the bathroom with and the ministry of the garden. And it was also because of the old idea of the Xenia about the hospitality, to yeah, to have people you don't know. And it was the idea in the old times that these were the ambassadors, and you were not allowed to ask questions when they came. You have to give them food and a place to sleep, but you were not allowed to ask who they are, why they are here, what they are doing, because it might be that these are the gods coming only in a costume of a human being. And about these idea how to bring the cosmos and the oikos together and cutting out for a moment the polis, we wrote this application the last weeks with partners from Spain, Portugal, and Italy. And yeah, but it raises as well a lot of questions, what happens if you do it. But it felt very inspiring. And if you say this molecular thing of relation and so on, and the subjectivity, I asked myself in the same moment that there is as well a huge danger in. And this is the other thing we experience, I would say, in the moment. And yeah, I don't know where it goes, but I see this shift in the decade after the pandemic and the jet lag. But for me it's a bit too early. I can't really describe it. This way I'm more listening to it, and this perhaps the Oikosmos is already the next or the over next decade, if we still find places to invent these kind of of living together. So yeah, this is why I stayed a bit silent, because I'm listening and try to see how for me this new decade how I would describe it. And it's interesting if you read a book like Love from Emilia Ruick, that she starts with how to think family new, but in the concrete house in a way, and then open up to the cosmos as well. And it's I think this line, to cut out the polis for a moment, is to think at the moment how to spend time together, how to see each other, quite important move. I need to open once the door. I'm sorry, there's a child coming home.
And perhaps, we don't know, but perhaps it offers somehow a link between this local question that like Carla, like you put it, was perhaps a bit too local and forgot about the international, about the question of how to open up and reach out and make this. I always like this there is a tiny little passage in an interview or in a conversation between Michel Foucault and Gilles Deleuze about the role of the intellectual, where they say the universal is over, but we need to think the micro as the new universal. We need to sort of bring these together and make the micro politics as if they were a universal potential, but not in the Kantian way, but in a more empirical way. And this I find interesting to think about.
There's this quote of Deleuze where he says that a new book is a monster that is made by fucking somebody in the ass. In Foucault, I think it's the same interview that you're referring to in these Foucault interviews. And since I have read it, I'm busy with the question, who's the bottom and who's thinking about the bottom, huh? And then of course we have strong feminist approaches in the meantime of Bini Adamczak, for example, who talks all about conclusion instead of penetration, huh? We talked about Rivers also already. So I think we are on a path of understanding, and I'm not sure if this is too big words, but we are on a path of understanding what energy and matter mean at the same time. And the local was maybe a bit too much focusing on the matter, or I think there was a disbalance in this clearly complementarity, or maybe even more than a complementarity. But it's also that thing that is for me, the most crucial knowledge of people who work in theater. That they know that this transaction and this transaction, and not a financial or goods or whatever transaction, that this transaction is happening, and it's happening at the same time in both, let's say, dimensions. And this opens up for me into a space where work as concrete as caring for somebody, and as unconcrete as destroying yourself with alcohol and cigarettes, to put it like this, becomes the same. And then when we get out of these moral discussions, we might be able to steal the power back that we gave away. This, like for me, it's really this transformative power of energy and matter being the same at the same time. How can we learn to perceive it constantly at the same time?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, Caroline. Thank you for putting it in so precise and elegant words. I think it's useful to situate these experiences like historically, because the Topian decade, let's call it like this just to make it easy, is closely linked to the experience of financial capitalism and digital capitalism. And so the critique, every form of power has a form of critique, no? The critique had to go back to the matter and to the place, and to affirm the place and locality and concreteness and so on. And so when we observe this shift, we have also to observe the shift of power. So nowadays we assist to a global refascisation of the global comeback of fascism in a way. And what does fascism do? Cut relationship and fragment the social tissue. No, so obviously the focus of critique goes to that, and to the quality of relationships, and yeah, also I would have quoted Bini Adamczak for the Beziehungsweise Revolution book, like when she's talking about the quality of the relationships that revolutionaries of the past centuries practiced. No, yeah, and here in Italy, I often have the great luck to listen to partisans from Resistenza, from the resistance movement against Nazis and fascism in Italy. And even if they not all of them knows all the others, they are obviously quite a small community because they are dying out, and they don't know they don't know each other, I mean, some of them do, but not all of them. But they share this memory of the quality of the relationships within resistance. And they talk about this. They don't talk about organizing a terrorist cell and hiding weapons and doing sabotage on train lines. They can also talk about this, but what they really stick to is the affirmative quality of the relationships they experienced in this kind of network. And yeah, and I currently I experience here in Italy a very strong comeback of these narrations and of these heritages as a concrete counter proposition to what we are experiencing now on a larger political level.
And I hear a bit, Elena, what you said in the very beginning, that these kind of relationships, and you would wish sometimes to have more of them together at one spot, which is impossible, but that this is sort of a ground for you. Is this similar idea, sort of, that the relationships and the quality of them, when you said what makes me feel home or something, that this is sort of the energetical substance, let's say, to bring energy and matter into one thing, that you would describe as your ground?
Yeah, but this also, I think it's shifting as we are shifting what how you could perceive the idea of ground cannot be stable, and I think this is healthy. But yet talking about context, and I agree that we need to situate the conditions or where we are, but I'm not sure how easy it is sometimes. There are a lot of similarities now. I mean, because there are a lot of discussions about the situations in Germany, about cuts in terms of fundings. It's somehow a condition that's very like it's the norm for the Greek context, at least. So now it's like everything goes together. But of course, we can recognize the differences and we can learn from those differences. Yeah, but I could say more poetically that the ground is trembling, and we are trying to find more like stability.
And this is really real in Greece, much more than in Germany, the trembling ground. I mean,
But what is very real here is that the quality of the relationships that you just described, Laura, is sort of missing. I sort of, I look at the talks that we have in a very concrete sense, not in the sense of who you chose as your peers or something, but I look into this scene, free artist performance scene in NRW, and this quality of relationships is not there. It has not been learned. It's what we missed out on.
perhaps
We are
not yet. Let's
Yeah, but
make it
we are late. We are not very prepared, because what is the other side doing? They are just doing nothing. They are silent, and they don't talk to us. And we sit in front of sort of a non-political act, which declares itself to be the new political, and we don't know what to do. And I think, I don't know, Elena, without romanticizing again, but I think the long learned ways of how to collaborate on micro levels, how to be resilient in those quality relationships that also sometimes come by outside factors that are evil and horrible and dangerous and violent and so on. This this has been blocked away by all the privileges that we have, which makes it also an interesting discussion right now that only very few people have started off, I feel, and the majority has not entered this yet. What actually have we missed out on to make possible what is going on in the moment? That this is not just us and them, and we always thought we are the sort of the glue of democracy and we are so much needed as free artists and so on, and now the right-wing parties come and destroy us, but also a specific carelessness of the quality of relationships has produced a very good ground for intervening into our scene and taking us apart, and we don't know exactly what's happening and we don't know how to react to it. And I really feel that a lot of people here are confused on a very concrete, very personal level, which is okay and to express this, but we haven't learned our lesson in the last couple of years of what was actually going on, because it was going on all the time already. And now it shows that we are not so prepared, not as much as we thought.
But again, I think we might idealize the condition in other contexts that they know how to do it. Because, okay, there are some
Absolutely,
periods
can
that
be.
the crisis is like up to here, so uh, you are trying to find like fast solutions, and you might act more collectively. But when like it's like more like daily life, I think these alliances somehow they're problematic. They're not always lively, because maybe for you the Greek is a good example, the Greek example, but for me it has a lot of problematics, and as you said, like because a friend she said, well, at some point, if like what we call artistic community, if it's a community or just a scene, because just for an artistic scene you don't have expectations, but for a community you have like more expectation for communication, for staying with you when it's needed, for fighting for the same things, even if you are in a more privileged position. Yeah, so for me, yeah, yeah, I think it's somehow logic that in this difficult situation with with the cuts of fundings, the people are coming together. But for me, the question is how they are staying together after it, because you might have like small fundings, and some actors of the community they will take them. Are they gonna stay with you? And yeah,
Yes,
it's also
exactly.
positioning yourself, and that it's also about time and.
Absolutely. And I clearly feel that I have experience of both, of what you distinguish as the scene or the community. And I think I could even, and the one is more vague and large, and though it is small, but sort of a large group of people. And the other is a community. And I could say with every person that I would point to myself, if this person for me in my inner feeling and my inner picture would rather belong to the scene or to the community. And I would say there are not so many that go for the second, and that asks back a lot of questions to sort of these scenes in which we are circling around and so on. What are they actually? What kind of reliability do they offer? Um, but I really feel, at least in our own artistic work, that this question of how you describe community now is actually the base of what we try to do with our teams, with the experience, even if with the experience of a shared space with audience, where we really try, as you experienced yourself, Elena, to create a space that allows more involvement than a normal theater performance that you buy a ticket for and leave after 2 hours again, and this. And how could we, this is a question in my head that is really is difficult, but how can we bring this Topian, on the spot, community moments together with all the questions of the energies that we talked about, bring this together really sort of on a cosmic, or let's say international, whatever kind of wording we want to use, level, that you really feel in a connection to people who are far away because of the quality of the relationship, without forgetting that they are in concrete places, and that these concrete places still have concrete conditions, which are shaped by nations or by environmental questions or by climate questions and so on, and to find sort of bridges between these two models, and to find sort of bridges between the point A and the point B that Laura described as a shift from the one to the other, and to think them not exclusively but inclusively, and make this sort of this connection between the local, the body, the concrete, time and place, and the far away, somewhere else, which again meets other local conditions. And who are we in between this? How can we be together in between these local moments that we only sometimes share and a lot of times not, because things are sort of getting in our ways and are blocking us, and still to feel on an energetical level that this is really a sense of community and not just a scene or something very abstract, and in the end sort of not important enough to really make our efforts be big enough to sustain and maintain the things that we feel are important.
I think this would be a point to go on, but in a second session, perhaps, to try really to define these. Yeah, and perhaps as well, what does it mean really to feel so local and global in the same moment, and the shift, and to bring this into a description of our now times, and not the old times of the old stones, but the now and here.
And without idealizing this again, perhaps I'm too much interested also in the beauty, sort of the good energies that I feel that Carla was also pointing out to, and it's also, you saw it in the chat, huh? That she ran for her father for some very local help. She's writing, she's taking care of her parents who are old and ill in the moment, I think. I can say, really, through this shitty medium that we are using all the time here, but I really feel you are out there, you know? I really feel there is a quality of relationship, and I also feel that you are people who are taking care of or thinking about, even in negative ways, of the places that you are passing through. So I also feel this. I feel that it's not nothing where we are sitting, but it's not all, you know, and that this, with this knowledge, it allows us to really meet. And I have again the feeling that this almost 2 hours is really sharing and working on this quality of relationship, and that it doesn't have to be that we are a revolutionary cell sitting in a concrete place anymore. It can be also via the digital tools, but only if we know that we are still sort of touching ground somewhere. And it doesn't have to be the same ground, and it doesn't have to be in the same moment, but we need to know that we are sort of in these searching for these qualities. Because if this search is real, we bring it also into a meeting like this. And this is something I can feel, and it's touching.
So thank you for today. I stopped the recording.